So Charli D'Amelio is a name you've probably heard of by now. You probably know her as dancing TikTok girl, whose army of stans is larger than Dreams himself, and if you say the wrong word about her, they will dox you and your grandma. She's led an extremely impressive social media career, being the most followed TikToker with over 100 million followers at the age of only 17. She's 3 years older than me, ain't that fun? But definitely the most impressive part is the fact that Charli managed to gain this insane amount of followers in only 2 years, which was sure to gather some major media attention. You see, since Charli's blow up, the media has been all in on her fame. Charli has been on such shows as Good Morning America, Ellen, Jimmy Fallon, but recently she's taken the next big step. The D'Amelio Show. That's right, HBO announced that they were making a show not just about Charli, but the entire family of D'Amelios, including the parents. And I, hating myself, decided to watch it. So here are my thoughts. Okay, so I want to get this off straight away. This is not a bad show. This show is not what I was expecting at all. I think when everybody heard of it at first, they all thought it was going to be some kind of Keeping Up with the Kardashians type thing. Yeah, not quite. So there isn't much to talk about in the pilot. Can I call it that? The pilot? That seems fictional. In the first episode. Because obviously it's just an introduction to what the show is as a whole. The perspective changes a lot between Dixie and Charli because the show really wants to remind you that it's not just the Charli D'Amelio show. But it's in a way that works. The first episode does something very important, and that is to show that this isn't meant to be some cringy over-dramatization of their lives. In fact, it's sort of the opposite. While shows such as, I'm gonna keep bringing this one up, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, tend to kind of put these people on pedestals and show their godlike lifestyles, this show's more meant to personify the D'Amelios. The issue with social media is that everything is fake, but by now people already know this. So when you see people living these glamorous lifestyles, you know that you're only seeing that two-dimensional version of them. And the issue that this creates is that people start looking at these influencers as not actual humans, because online, they aren't. So seeing the fact that these people don't just live in ideals and have their own issues and, most importantly, emotions, is something different from what other shows strive to do. As I said, there isn't really much to talk about in this one when it comes to actual plot, so I'll just tell you some of the thoughts I had when watching. One thing that really surprised me is how realistic the D'Amelios are about everything, especially the kids. Social media fame sometimes comes very quickly, and this was the case with the D'Amelio family. And when something like this happens, it's easy to get clouded vision and think that this rate of growth is going to last forever. But that's not how the internet works. Your relevancy and growth rate will always be fluctuating in unpredictable ways. One day you might be the most famous person in the world, and the next you'll get 10 likes and a retweet on your post. Actually, I tell a lie, it's not unpredictable. The only way to predict if you're about to fall off is if you're invited to go on Ellen. For the love of God, don't go on Ellen. But the D'Amelios surprisingly seem to have a very grounded mindset and know that this won't last forever. Throughout the episode, they make it explicitly clear that they don't believe that this type of fame and growth will last forever, and they're just trying to make the most of it while it lasts. Another thing that they bring up in the episode is that the sisters actually have a full-time job. Many people will probably still believe the fact that their entire job description is just doing a TikTok dance and calling it a day. Well, actually, if you do still believe that, you're a bit stupid. It's pretty well known now that this isn't the case. In the show, they give us a brief glimpse at Charli's schedule, and holy shit, I just think I had a mini stroke. If I'm working on 2 videos at one time, I think of myself as the god of time management. Meanwhile, she has an advent calendar full of binders and a PowerPoint presentation. Throughout this, it's shown that Charli likes to maintain a normal, a sort of rock, if you will. And for Charli, this is dance. It's shown how Charli manages to maintain this full-ass schedule, but also have time for dance lessons afterwards. And if anything, this has made me gain a bit of respect for Charli. To have a schedule that packed and also manage time to do dance lessons after it is something I probably couldn't do. That's not to say that Charli has the hardest job in the world. She's not being sent out to war to renegade on no man's land. But I can already feel Dave from Sussex typing in the comments, well, no, I could do that for her amount of money. And to that I say, Dave, you can't even manage a relationship, let alone a schedule. Throughout the episode, one of the main themes is privacy. The D'Amelios blew up so quickly that they went from a private normal life to paparazzi everywhere and people judging them for everything that they do. Throughout the show, it shows some negative comments overlaying on the screen, which I'm not gonna lie is a bit cringy, but it gets the point across. Now the episode ends with Dixie having a breakdown. She sat crying on her bed as throughout the episode she'd been excited to do this one interview and it received less than positive reactions. All the comments were either complaining about her or picking her apart, such as her appearance. She's crying over a particular comment about her looks because she'd just been to the gym and people were calling her musty, while her parents are trying to comfort her. Now this felt weird at first, and I actually had a paragraph talking about it on the script, but in the next episode it's revealed that Dixie was the one who asked to have the cameras in there to show how much of an effect these words can actually have. Fuck me, I sound like a teacher. But anyway, that's all I really have to say about the first episode. It's a good introduction, but I'm not gonna lie, I had to watch it on 1.25 speed. Now that's a problem with the entire show for me. It's just boring. You see, we see all these people's problems and them constantly complaining, but we never actually are made to care about them. Like, I don't care enough about these people, and the show doesn't try to make me care, because the target audience already does. But because of this, the long scenes of them talking about their hair or their dandruff don't really interest me. But I guess that's more of a personal problem, so I'll move on. Episode 2. Episode 2 takes a step back from the D'Amelios. It shows they're in a circle. Dixie takes Noah Beck, her boyfriend, out for a date. Meanwhile, Charli goes to an influencer birthday party. I will say this episode's more interesting than the first. I don't want to blow my brains out watching it, but I still had to watch it faster. I'll also say that I like the format of switching between Dixie and Charli's perspective. I'll also say I really like the format of them switching between Dixie and Charli's perspective, because it gets us more of an equal view of both sides, but it does lead to some weird moments, such as near the beginning of the show, Dixie is talking about her anxiety, and it cuts to Charli talking about her wanting a pet gecko. Actually, that's a point within itself. The editing in the show is very weird. Whenever they introduce somebody new, even when it's not an influencer, they show their like Instagram follow account or something right next to their name. Look, no offense to Tony or Christina, but this feels like it was edited by 20 people who weren't allowed to watch the rest of the footage. At the very start of the episode, we cut back where we left off with Dixie literally having a breakdown, and it cuts to a sick car montage. This happens throughout the show, where we go from something really serious to like Charli talking about her clothes or something, and it comes off as really jarring and awkward. Speaking of awkward, this episode follows Dixie's struggle to be affectionate, so she takes her boyfriend Noah Beck out on a date. It's funny because there's this clip of Dixie going, oh yeah, I can really see myself spending the rest of my life with him, he's great, and then it just cuts to Noah Beck going, Dixie, yeah, she tries her best. They talk about the fact how difficult it is to have a relationship in the public eye, being constantly looked up to by a bunch of teenagers while also being hyper-criticized about everything. But for me, the worst part was the whole date. See, Dixie takes Noah out on this romantic little date on the beach where they kiss and they say I love you and stuff. And all I'm thinking is that there was a poor cameraman who just had to sit there. Like, I'm just imagining this poor bloke behind the camera while they used to having their little I love you moments being like, okay guys, can we go home now? I'm uncomfortable watching this just through a screen. Give this poor man a raise. Now, I will say that Noah Beck actually seems like a genuinely likable person in this episode. Now, believe it or not, I'm not the most well-versed when it comes to TikToker knowledge, so he could just be this terrible human being. But in this episode, he seems nice enough. In fact, this episode actually demonstrates that while some people think influencers are only friends for the money, which some of them definitely are, social media is still a place where you can kind of meet and interact with new people, not just a place where teenagers get famous. Which, not gonna lie, was refreshing. Also, why the fuck are they all wearing the same thing at a birthday party? Who coordinates what they wear to birthday parties? Clan members? So episode 3 is actually more of a focus on the effects of bullying rather than bullying itself. The episode is titled, No One Would Ever Say That to Your Face, which is a bit on the nose, but fine by me. I've heard a million times that the people making fun of you on the internet would never say anything like this to your actual face. So the episode isn't exactly the most original concept, but I guess there had to be at least one episode about it. The episode takes an interesting spin on it because instead of showing the bullying itself, it shows the aftermath of what the bullying does for once. Throughout the episode, Charli has to deal with the anxiety of going to the Kids' Choice Awards, meanwhile Dixie has to deal with the anxiety of doing her first live show. One of the things that Charli says is that she feels like she's losing either way, no matter what. If she loses the Kids' Choice Awards, people are going to laugh at her, but if she wins them, people are going to say she didn't deserve it. This episode doesn't really have a whole lot to talk about, so I'll just do some of my thoughts in a quick lightning round. Go. The house is so big that they FaceTime each other from different rooms. The editing is still really bad. I went from really not liking the parents to really liking Daddy D'Amelio. He's a nice guy. And Dixie has really awful band ideas. I did also like the fact how they showed off minutes before the Kids' Choice Awards and the behind the scenes, like seconds before Dixie was about to go live. But I just like behind the scenes stuff, so that's a personal thing. But the main thing that I took away from the D'Amelio show is that all these problems and all these episodes are not big influencer problems, they are just teenage problems. You see, when you blow up as young and as quickly as the D'Amelios did, you start feeling more isolated from the world and you feel like you can't talk to anybody about anything. You also start to think that every single problem you have in your life, no matter how big or small, is because of your fame. Most of the issues talked about in the show are just episodes that most people have to deal with in general, you know, anxiety, thinking that you're being judged. But it's because they're famous and it's because they grew up in this bubble of fame that they feel like these problems are exclusive to them and like Justin Bieber. And that just pretty much takes a normal issue and puts it on crack, because now they feel even more alone and they don't seem to realise that these problems are just things that everybody goes through. But anyway, that's probably about enough D'Amelios for me. For what this show's trying to be, I'd probably give it 7 D'Amelios out of 10. I'm not going to do the whole it's been a while bit because I feel like I'm doing this every video, but Merry Christmas, guys. Thank you to all of those that stuck around as always. Even bigger thanks to those who don't unsubscribe as soon as they see this video. I've been streaming on Twitch quite a bit, so if you want to catch up with me, the link is in the description below. Merry Christmas. Maybe next year I'll upload more. That's probably going to be my New Year's resolution. But at the same time, I have been working on a big video for like the past 3 months. So that's it for me, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.